It's great to see everyone. Well, this is a continuing thread of our sessions over the past few months. We are happy that there are those of you who've been following the process. And most recently, we talked about what comes up in the spring. When we are exploring the inner space with meditation, living in the world and encountering challenges, and what are the things that come to your attention in the spring, and then what are the things that what are the ways or the techniques or the approaches to dealing with that new awareness, those new awarenesses of things emerging. And so now we're kind of moving from spring into summer. And here it hasn't quite happened. It's still quite chilly, but some of you are probably having warmer weather. Yes, so there are awarenesses, there are insights, there are inspirations often for how to integrate those new awarenesses and what to do with them. But then life happens and we get distracted. And somehow all that fades away, disappears. So we've been very conscious of taking plants that have been seeded in little tiny pots and gotten this big, which people call now starts. We've got the starts, now we put them in the ground, but they still need some protection. And so we have a way of taking bamboo strips and sticking them in the ground and putting a cloth over them to protect them. Sometimes we just weed around them. Sometimes we're watching to see if rabbits have arrived or some other creature that wants to feast on these, and then we provide some protection. But anyway, it's a kind of process of shepherding them along until they're bigger plants and they're established and they actually can grow on their own without much help. So what is the comparable process that we can use to protect those little new awarenesses that have happened in the spring and our new approaches to weaving them into our lives so they don't just fade away and disappear. So it's not just in this season that happens, of course. It happens frequently because we live in a world that seems to be very effectively designed to distract us. So there's always another thing happening and another thing happening, and then we have to turn on the TV to see, well, what's happening with that, and then read about it, and then go out in the world and deal with the repercussions of whatever's happening. So it's very common and to be distracted and to lose sight of the things that we had discovered, so that instead of building on them, they kind of fade, and then maybe that insight occurs again in a few months. And we have another opportunity to cultivate that awareness and work with it. But we'd like to do it maybe the first go around, or at least the second go around. So tonight's our opportunity to look at that and think about that, and very interested in what some of you might have devised as a way of dealing with this issue of what should I call it? Hanging on to our insights and discoveries that come through meditation and through living as well, and as well as how do you build on them so that they get incorporated into the fabric of your being and become part of who you are. So I'll just open the floor, the screen, whatever, to people's comments or sharings, whatever comes to you that you found effective, that you'd like to share with anybody, with other people. Linda. Great.
Well, I bought a little.
Oh, wait a minute. We're just getting 80%. Our sound. Okay. There. Now we're ready.
Okay. I bought a little lavender plant, and I've had it inside.
Can everybody hear Linda? Okay. We can't hear Linda. But hang on. We're working on it.
Try it again.
Okay. Try again.
Okay. So can you hear me now?
No, we're still not getting a voice. Okay, we're going to revert to another system here. So
Okay, testing 1, 2, 3.
now we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I bought a little lavender plant, and I've had it inside for about 3 weeks since I got back from visiting my daughter. And the other day it started looking kind of droopy, and I thought, has water, you know, I went through all the things, has water, doesn't have too much and all that. And I thought, oh, maybe I need to get it outside. So I put it outside, and it's so happy. So it was, it was kind of a wake-up call for me of how to spend more time outside.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying, if you could spend an hour a day, that would really be great. So I'm not up to there yet, but I'm definitely getting out and walking a certain amount at least. And
excellent.
That's really helping.
Good. So, so you had an awareness that you needed more connection with the outdoors.
Right. I had to, you know, didn't get it quite. The plant had to help me, but that's okay.
Right. That's fine. That'll work. Good. Yeah. And who else has a approach? Arabella?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of speaking. I was scratching my face, but I'll speak. In my life, the most critical part of integration really occurs in my daily practice. The daily practice reminds me. And the practice then runs like a river throughout my day. It's just constantly present. I also, you probably can't see it, but I have a little, or I forget what they call them, Rickeys, I think, a little string that I wear on my wrist that I got in India when I was there last. And I, if it falls off, I'll just put another string on it, because there's something about having this thing on my wrist that is not beautiful, but is rather just constantly present, that reminds me. So I look at my wrist and I'm washing my hands or whatever, and I say, oh, oh yes, oh yes. And then, you know, inside, it's like a reset button. Inside, once again, the mantra begins.
Yeah, yeah. Great, great. Yeah, so when you say that your practice reminds you, is it when you sit, or when you're doing stretches, or when you're doing breath work, or when does it pop back up like, oh yeah, don't forget me?
Yes. Yes, it's everything. It's you know, even when I get up in the morning, it's been my practice for over 10 years that I don't speak until after my practice. But when I get up in the morning and I'm making a cup of tea, because after my cup of tea, I come into my temple and I do some Sanskrit while I'm drinking my tea. And then I go into asana, and, you know, and the challenge with having a routine is keeping it alive, right? So the memory is what happens. The I don't want to call it memory, because that sounds like it's something distant, but rather the lived moment that re-echoes throughout each day's practice.
Mm.
So when I do pranayama, when I do mantra, when, you know, I think each aspect of my practice has something that contributes toward the integrated whole.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, it was a well-designed system. The you know, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dhyana, and so forth. This is the teachings of the Yoga Sutras, and the yoga system was very well engineered to help with the process of spiritual opening and awareness and so forth. So, you know, those of you who have some training in yoga can always revert to that and think, well, wow, what else? What am I leaving out? Oh, you know, I haven't been paying much attention to the breath. Let me add that. That may open up things for you. Or, you know, I haven't been doing any stretching, so sitting is really uncomfortable, so I've been avoiding it. And oh, maybe I need to loosen up my body by doing some yoga stretches, and then it feels like, and then sitting feels, this feels good, instead of, oh, I don't want to have to sit here, I'm uncomfortable. So the pieces all work together beautifully. And if you, so we say I have a practice, meaning I have a routine that I go through, because then I don't have to think about, well, what should I do next? Oh, maybe I should do some meditation. Maybe I should do some mantra. Well, if I have a system, I get up in the morning and I don't engage with the world, and that's the point of silence, you know, kind of maintaining silence means I come out of sleep and still stay, not really in the sleep state, but in a state of not being too plugged into the busy world. And then I can sit and still, and I'm still in that space of kind of contemplation and quiet and awareness. And it's much easier to do yoga. It's much easier to do breath work. It's much easier to do meditation in that state of mind. And if you have a routine of doing that, then it's sort of like you get up in the morning. I wake up, I look at the clock, it's 7:30. Sometimes it's 7:22, sometimes it's 7:28. But it's like, okay, it's time to get up. And it's time to do some stretches and wake up my body. And then it's time to sit and maybe do some kapalbhati, some breath stuff, maybe do some nadi shodhanam, alternate nostril breathing. And then feeling kind of alert and comfortable and peaceful, then I just sit and enjoy the quietness and see what emerges. Because meditation is a practice of sitting down and being quiet and seeing what happens. You know, so you have a routine, but there's still a kind of opening for something different to happen. So sometimes I don't do the breath work, or sometimes I do all breath work, or some, you know, but something starts happening and I go with it. But it's the routine that takes me into a place where I'm open to that spontaneity emerging and not jerked back into the world of busyness, you know, the press of busyness that gobbles us up, and then another day is gone. It's like, oh my God, what happened? So for those of you who don't have an established practice, I would invite you to try that. I mean, you know, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. It can be, I get up, I brush my teeth, or I have some water or whatever, and then I sit quietly for 10 minutes, or I lie down on a mat, do some movement, and then I sit for a few minutes, or whatever you want to do. But if you have a practice, a routine, so when, especially for morning, it's a great time, because you're still coming from the world of other kinds of consciousness and not trying to come out of that at the end of the day. But some people prefer to meditate at night. Dawn and dusk are considered to be great times, because that's when day is shifting to night, night shifting to day. Those are great times to sit, because the mind easily slips into another space. It's the sushumna of the day. Sushumna, because they call the right nostril the sun and the left nostril the moon. And when you're breathing through one of the nostrils, which is usually what's happening, you're caught up in one, or then you're caught up in the other. But when you're between the two, when your breath is equal through both nostrils, that's the dusk and the dawn, where the sun and the moon are kind of equal. And then it's easy to move into another reality, the one that gets neglected all day long. So yeah, that I just have to put a little plug in for, everything now on the media has a time for commercials. So that's a little commercial for meditation and morning practice. But yeah, so what other tricks have people found to keep your insights alive and not lose your ahas? Yes, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
It's Christopher from Minneapolis.
Oh yes, Christopher, great.
I live across the street from a really beautiful park. And so I'll make it part of my practice to go over there and do a forest bath, where I really can just let anything that's static or worry or any tension from the day, I can release it into the earth. And I have to like actively surrender. Otherwise, I'm going to want to figure out how to push it out of me. But it's like if I just release it and then just let it release and then get that pause in between when I'm letting it out of me and then when I'm letting the new chi or the new earth, energy come into me. Sometimes it's slow. Other times it's just as easy as me inhaling the good and exhaling the static. And it's not good, but the fresh, the new.
Yeah, right. And I would imagine that with the new comes your insights and your new directions that need to be cultivated. And so,
it like clears my mind so my intuition can speak more directly.
Yeah, right.
There's fewer expectations and fewer biases, and I really do listen to my intuition more, because I really do feel like when I'm a clear channel, then it's really easy to hear or feel and follow. But if I'm stuck in a reaction or just toxic, literally, then I can misinterpret what's being asked of me.
Right. Excellent. Well, that's a plug for nature as well, going out into a park or into the woods or outdoors, which is also extremely, as Linda was saying, I'm always telling people, get out the house.
I do want to add that if I don't follow my instinct or if I don't act on what I'm being called from, it's like I lessen the trust that I have with myself. But if I get this insight and it says, do this, the more I allow myself to do it and just allow myself to trust it, then my body mind kind of says, oh, you are good at this. You are hearing this. Here, let me give you some more.
Yeah. That's such a good point. My teacher once, I forget what we were talking about, but he said, I said, yeah, I'll do that. And so I filed it like, well, I'll do that at some point. And he said, do it now. And I went, oh, okay. and now I hear that voice, it's like, oh, I will do, no, do it now. Okay, I'll do it now. And then that begins to be a modus operandi, that begins to be my way of, okay, this is coming into my life. All right, I deal with it now, and then I'm ready for the next thing. It's such a freedom in that, instead of the long list of things that, yes, I'm going to do later. So it's making way for what we call in Tantra spanda, or spontaneity. You're opening the door for spontaneity to happen. But when it's like, well, okay, yeah, I can be spontaneous, but not right now because I have all these things I have to do, then that doesn't work well. So nature is constantly being spontaneous. And we are part of nature. So when we get back immersed into that space, into that world of natural phenomena, there is a kind of encouragement and support for moving back into that ourselves, moving back into the spanda, moving back into the spontaneity, and being in sync with the natural world. And of course, so many of the insights that come with spring are related to that spontaneity, related to that more aliveness, related to what is it that we do that prevents us from being a functioning part of the natural world, and gets us into the long lists of I should do, I have to do this, or whatever. that is a different way of living. So, yeah, I really want to underscore that possibility. Get outdoors. That's a wonderful technique. Get outdoors, breathe, relax, release all the negativity, allow it, just allow it to go, allow it to sink into the earth. People say the earth knows how to compost that and make something fertile out of it. So we can take advantage of that gift that nature has for taking the negative and turning it into growth and creation, abundance, and nurturance. Good. More. I want more people's ideas. What do you do?
This is David Salee. I can share. One of the things that I've found is really useful is for me to share with someone who will get what I'm sharing. If I have an epiphany, and or whether that's something that inspires me, or a piece of it could be something that I'm realizing about an old way of being or an old habit I have, or realization about a faulty way of thinking that I've had. I find by the act of speaking it and sharing it with someone who can hear it is really powerful for me on different levels. One, just speaking it is powerful. Two, having it heard is powerful. And then also, there's something about it creates something in our relationship. When I see that person, there's some kind of glimmer of, oh yeah, I told that person that I'm going to do this now, or that I'm looking at things this way now. And it's a reminder in that way. And then another thing that I do, which is kind of connected to that, is sometimes I'll set a reminder on my phone, like an alarm on my phone, to go off once a day. Like I've had a reminder on my phone for, I guess, the past 2 years, saying breathe. And for me, that's a moment for me to just be present to my breath, to check in with my breath, to say, oh yeah, my breath. And then oftentimes that goes off when I'm with someone else, and they'll say, oh, do you have a call? And I'll say, oh no, this is my reminder for me to breathe. And be like, what? So then that kind of creates me sharing with somebody else.
Right.
So I found those to be pretty helpful for me.
Yeah. I know people have said, my God, you haven't been breathing. But it's a different kind of breath with awareness that is so powerful. Yeah. Yes. So sharing. And if you don't have anyone to share with, another wonderful technique is to journal. Write it down. You may never go back and read it, or you may, but the act of writing it and seeing the words on paper and formulating it and making it clear helps it become a permanent part of your thinking and your being. So that's great too, if you don't have someone that you can share it with at this moment. Thank you, David. So who else would like to let us know what you do? Jody.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm in Costa Rica right now. I'm actually getting ready to go to be out on the land that may become Tantra South at some point for a full week, totally off grid. So I would ask all of you to send good juju, because things have been really intense here in Costa Rica since I've been here. One thing I just wanted to add to this conversation, for me, the two things that I know that always bring me back kind of into alignment with myself is being in nature, particularly in a body of water, the ocean or a lake, and movement of any kind, like authentic movement, not just moving to move, but like really feeling my body as it's moving. But one thing that I notice is that I get taken away by those things, and I have a tendency to only want to do that. So when I go and I'm in nature or I'm in water, I feel really good, but it doesn't necessarily help me make decisions of what paths to follow in my life. And that's something I've really been sitting with is, you know, i- in theory, ideally, it should be exactly the same thing. Um, what the universe wants to birth through me, let's say, wants to use me as a channel for, and what I want to do. And I've been getting very mixed messages about that recently. And it hasn't really been clear, like, okay, is this what wants to be birthed through me, or is it not? Is it what I want? Is it not? Are those two things the same thing? Um, so yeah, I guess for me, it's that when I can come back into myself, but I haven't been getting clarity from that necessarily in the past month.
Great. Well, thank you. That is an interesting comments to speak to, because I think that my theory is that one of the things we all want most in life is to be able to be totally spontaneous and have it be exactly the right thing. That is true freedom. Like, okay, I'm doing exactly what feels right, and it is right, and the world, is benefits by it, and so forth. And getting to that point is a process. And it is actually, that process could be called the spiritual path. So it's those insights that come to us, that truths, our awarenesses about ourselves, that we integrate, that move us along that path. So the thing we're talking about tonight is, how do we hang on to those little pieces? Because if we hang on to those little pieces and really make them a part of how we live and think, then we move closer and closer to this state of freedom, which is that, I can allow Spanda to move through me, and that's exactly what is needed at this point. And, I'm free. I don't have to worry. I don't have to scheme and figure out, and, I can just do what comes up within me, and it's perfect. But that process that gets us there is what we're calling a sadhana, or a practice, or a spiritual path, or whatever. Does that make sense?
So you're referring to these insights are the things that help to bring us back kind of into our own center when we're getting pulled off by everything, all the swirling that's going on around us.
Well, that's one of the things that might be an awareness. This is something I can do to keep myself centered. But there are many different kinds of awareness. Life is really a whole long, protracted, almost endless, it seems, process of understanding ourselves and really seeing the truth of who we are and what we do and why we do it, because we have been taught to sort of disguise that and make it look better than it is, or make it look more admirable, or whatever. And so we have to delve deeply into ourselves and acknowledge the truth of who we are and how we function. And, that's when we realize, well, I'm not perfect. Well, I'm not even close to perfect. But the more I understand about who I am and how I function, well, there are a lot of ways I can use that to benefit others. Even though it may not be an admirable trait, it has some use. But now I'm not trying to defend my ego against knowing things about myself that make me feel less noble. Now I'm open to going, yeah, well, that's one of my tendencies. This is something that I want to do. That I'm not proud of that, but so what? That was something I got growing up, and now I can realize that tendency is there, step around it when I need to, and go, I don't really have to do that because I see what it is, and I don't think I want to be governed by it. So all of these insights that we have and these realizations are part and parcel of the big project called self-realization, which means I begin to realize that I'm really just one piece of this enormous universe. And, then once I realize that that is who I am, I'm all of that, then I'm free to allow the space is open for that to express through me. And then I feel a freedom and fulfillment and peacefulness. So, we're moving toward that, and our daily practice helps us. Everything that we discover and learn about ourselves helps us move closer to that openness, that freedom, that self-realization, realizing that the self that I am is the self of all. And, I can be a functioning part of that. So, but if we don't hang on to those pieces of insight, then we end up doing the same thing again. And we don't get the benefit of the awarenesses that came to us. So that's really our focus tonight. So how can we hang on to those awarenesses? Because they will cumulatively, over time, they will take us to where you're trying to function from. But be patient, it will come. Yeah. Thank you for your sharing. Great. Where are we? And
Hi, Swami, it's Mark.
yes, Mark, great.
You used the word that I use when my mind thinks it's going to have fun and make me crazy. And I just say free, I need to be free. And the path that my mind is traveling is not going to allow me to be free. So I say to myself, free, I need to be free, and it stops. I suppose that it's with age that I've learned to be able to recognize the bullshit when it starts, and I can nip it in the bud. I think I started using the word free like that when I would drive for long periods, and my mind would be like, oh, my tires, my engine, I'm gonna run out of gas, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as it starts, I just say, free, I need to be free, thank you.
Great. Yes, I like that. Because it is freedom, when we can say, I don't have to pretend to be anything I'm not. I don't have to worry about taking care of every little detail of what's happening in the world. That's part of the universe's plan, and I'm free. Then I'm free. And so worries are what did someone say? Worrying is just praying for
What you don't want to happen.
what you don't want to happen. Because as you worry, you're visualizing the things you don't want to happen. And so that's kind of a prayer, but it's not a good idea to pray for what you don't want to happen. But that's one of the things we do, which comes from some kind of ego sense of omnipotence. Well, oh, that could go wrong. Well, I have to make sure it doesn't, because I'm in charge of the universe, right? Well, no, probably not. So yes, freedom is the word. And they use that word a lot in the tradition, about liberation. This is the liberation from all the misery of the world. That self-knowledge and self-acceptance and become and realizing that I am all of that. All of that is me. And that sounds like an intellectual concept, but if we can realize it in our living and thinking, then it becomes the path to freedom and liberation. And it's such a joy.
I had another conversation with a friend years ago, and he said to me that he thought I lived on a trust fund. And when he said that, I was about to say no, because I was thinking of money. But then I realized that I have a trust fund, that I trust that I'm always taken care of.
Right.
Even when I choose not to see that, I still have that trust fund.
That's great. Yeah. I think that's the real trust fund. The others are sort of fake. But that's the real one. Yeah, absolutely. We are perfectly justified in trusting that we will be taken care of. And, it's really not a problem. It doesn't mean that we will get what we have imagined or what we think is the best thing. But, it's that old adage about you may not get what you want, but you will get what you need and what's best for you. And you can learn to receive it with gratitude. Wow, and then you're in good shape. Instead of saying, that's not what I wanted. Say, oh, this is what I need. Okay, thank you. Life becomes easy. Good. Well, okay. Where are we? We're a little bit of time left. We have a little bit of time left. Yes, George.
I guess the thing that comes up for me most frequently is a sort of sense of a spiral in my life of coming around to something again, but from a new place, and remembering the previous insight and then being able to add a new insight to it, and sort of a vertical thing, but realizing that the insights are connected in different ways, and spiral doesn't quite do it justice. But
right. No, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we can work with what comes up in the moment, then when it comes back, it will be not the repetition. It'll be coming back at that new level of, spiral. And then we can build on that and build on that. And that's great. That's the ideal.
And I also wanted to just say that going back to your starters at the beginning, that my wife and I are just putting in raised beds. I've done many kinds of gardening and so on over the years, but I've never done raised beds before. So
good.
It's the first time.
Yeah. Well, get your hands in the dirt. That really is a good idea. That goes a long way.
Cover those starts to protect them.
Yeah.
This is Karen.
Karen, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things for me to remember to do to protect these new starts is to be kind and gentle with myself. Because all of these new things, epiphanies that I have, new ways of being, changing old things, I can get pretty hard on myself about feeling like a beginner and feeling so awkward and trying these new things. And so I have often reminders of be gentle, be kind to myself while I'm trying out these new things and new starts until I get stronger.
Yeah, well, you know, the martial arts teachers often talk about beginner's mind, and that being a beginner is the ideal thing. You know, like if we can always be a beginner, you know, like, okay, I'm open to whatever happens now as though it's fresh and completely new, then that's great. So being a beginner is not a negative thing. You know, we're actually every moment we're a beginner because this moment's different. but we have an inclination to try to treat it as though it's just like something else that happened before. And well, no, it's not. It's new. And it deserves to be received as a new, exciting gift. So, yeah, and being this cultural trait that we seem to have in this country of, you know, shame and guilt and self-blame and self-denigration is a bad idea. You know, that really doesn't help anything. And even though we might have been taught that there's something virtuous about, you know, that, I think it doesn't work out that way. So being kind and gentle to yourself is really, in a way, the technique that we often end up having to use is, if you can be kind and gentle to other people, then you might get to the point where you can be kind and gentle for yourself. So this is a real reason for being kind to others, is because you might learn the habit of that and then extend it to yourself. And we all need to do that. Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Well, it's great. I mean, I've heard a lot of good ideas and good techniques and approaches that we can all adopt and try out. And keep meditating. And if you only meditate once a week, great. But just sit down, close your eyes. Sometimes sit down, close your eyes, see what happens. It's a great support in life. Wonderful thing. So, Gerald, you want to make a few comments about what's happening next? Oh.
Sure. So next week, our practice has been that we have the satsang, the discussion, on one week, and then the following week we do a guided, or Swami Ravi leads a guided meditation around this discussion. So join us next week for a meditation on those insights, awarenesses, and we'll look forward to seeing you. So you all can unmute and say good night, and thank you so much.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Night. Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Good to see you all.
Everybody.
Be well and have a good week. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Right.